I believe that the most disruptive, most sustainable way that you could be successful in the world, regardless of what is the latest and greatest, and regardless of the innovation, regardless of the trends, is this mindset of selfless service, this mindset of, how can I help you?
I'm thrilled to have a conversation with Jonathan Kaiser, the managing partner and founder of Kaiser Commercial Real Estate, as well as the author of the insightful book, You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Win: The Art of Badass Selfless Service. In this episode, Jonathan opens up about his journey from a cutthroat mindset to one rooted in selfless service, highlighting the profound importance of aligning personal values with professional success. We explore how serving others has not only shaped Jonathan's business philosophy, but also made a significant impact on the commercial real estate industry as a whole. Jonathan and I delve into the intricacies of writing a best-selling book, underscoring the value of genuine long-term relationships over short-term gains. We also discuss the concept of selfless service as a transformative mindset shift that leads to sustainable success, offering practical strategies for implementing it in both business and personal lives. Listeners will uncover the transformative power of investing in their communities and fostering a culture of selflessness within their organizations. Jonathan emphasizes the importance of leveraging networks and connections to aid others without expecting immediate returns, highlighting the enduring benefits of building authentic relationships. Throughout our conversation, Jonathan shares personal anecdotes and insights drawn from his own experiences, providing listeners with actionable takeaways for integrating selfless service into their own lives and businesses. Join us for an enriching discussion and discover how embracing selfless service can elevate not only your professional success, but also your personal fulfillment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Hero of the Hour podcast. I'm with a very special guest, a guy who's 3,000 miles away from me right now in Arizona, Jonathan Kaiser. And we pronounce it Kaiser, right? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes, sir.
It's so funny. Jonathan, you have people who spell their name the same way, and they all pronounce it differently. So I'm always, even within the same family sometimes. But Jonathan is the largest commercial real estate firm. I think one of the largest ones in the country, and certainly the largest one in Arizona. And I just love to, just welcome to the podcast and thank you for spending some time with us.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're a unique kind of firm. We for the type of firm that we are, we're the largest in the state of Arizona, and we do work all around the world. If you include our international partners, we have about 600 people across the globe. And our focus is helping the tenant or the occupier or the user of commercial real estate. So if you think about traditional commercial real estate consulting or brokerage firms, they primarily represent landlords, developers, real estate investors. We're on the demand side. We're helping the user, the tenant, the occupier, whether they want to lease, buy, build, sell, sublease, whatever it is. We're their advocates versus serving the landlord developer.
I think for any entrepreneur, Jonathan, people always want to know this question. They always want to know, how did you get started? Where are you right now? And where are you going?
Yeah. Well, I had a very unique start. I was actually raised a Christian missionary kid in Papua New Guinea. So I don't know very many other people that can say that.
I don't know any.
I actually met one the other day that I'd never met before, which was astounding. I said, yeah, I grew up in Papua New Guinea, and he literally didn't blink and said, me too. And I said, what? I thought he was kidding. So anyway, so I was raised by parents that taught me to love and serve and give and help. And when we came back from overseas, I was 11, and I had this sort of rude awakening that my parents were poor. And I associated that selflessness that they had embodied and prescribed to everyone around and lived as the reason. So I decided I wanted to make money and look out for number one. I got into commercial real estate, and As I got in, I realized really quickly, wow, this is a cutthroat, take no prisoners, dog eat dog kind of industry. So I became that way, thinking that that's what it took to be successful. But I was miserable. I was misaligned with how I was raised and my core values, but I felt trapped because I wanted the success that it brought. And then 20 some years ago, I went to a conference and a speaker gets up and starts talking about a different way of doing business, a way of succeeding by selflessly serving other people. And it moved and inspired me. And long story short, I decided to reinvent myself, which was a long, hard road. And that's part of what I write about in my book. But, in 2012, I decided that in an epiphany moment that I had the opportunity to transform an industry, a really cutthroat industry, and show that just like the title of my book, you don't have to be ruthless to win. So with a song and a prayer and a vision for a better future, I launched the company Kaiser Commercial Real Estate in 2000, January of 2013, and have never looked back. And it's been this extraordinary run, a lot of learnings along the way. I've grown as an individual massively, a lot of good times, a lot of tough times. Um, but we are every single day I think what a lot of entrepreneurs want is they want that. Hey, can I accomplish my vision? Right? Is it in me to be able to achieve what I set out to accomplish? And I still have a lot more work to do in the team as well. But I really feel like we're having a significant impact, Mark, on the commercial real estate industry, and we're getting a lot of copycats. Biggest form of flattery is imitation, right? And so we get a lot of people that are now thinking, huh, if that crazy guy, Jonathan Kaiser, can do it in commercial real estate, maybe I can do it in banking, or maybe I can do it in law or whatever. And we're also seeing even other competitors of ours lean in. So I really feel like we're having an impact. And that's probably for me the most rewarding.
Well, that's it's I think people do not intuitively always get it, that the way you get it, in that you didn't spend weeks or months or even years, but you spent decades, years and decades pouring into other people.
Yeah,
And it's not a surprise that you have an army of people that want to show up big for you. And you're transforming that industry by not by taking things, but by giving things
that's
and
exactly
by, and
right.
by serving, and so I mean that in many ways when I hear you speak, I think I'm talking to a brother from another mother.
Yep.
We talked about your book, and by the way, one of the things I want to take a look at it. You mentioned it. I want to make sure I mention it again. You don't have to be ruthless to win. By the way, it was a number one Wall Street Journal best-selling book.
Yeah, I was.
How cool! How I mean, I've written 3 books. We hit number one on Amazon. Didn't never hit number one on the Wall Street Journal. Tell me, tell us a little about that journey because
Sure.
that's a pretty hard thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, without a question. I learned so much about it. It's a Herculean effort. And um, I had to I had to bring on so many partners, and I had to have, it was basically a full court press. There's a week, right? Like there's a week when the book officially launches, and you have until the end of that week to see how many sales you get. So, I mean, it was an all out sprint because I really wanted the book to do well, not for my own sake. I wanted it to do well because I wanted the market to recognize that this wasn't some crazy idea, that this was actually something that was worth reading and worth listening to. So it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. One, you have to have the people that are willing to buy the book and believe in what you're doing. But two, you have to believe in it enough to be willing to basically, for months leading up to it, teeing everything up. And then you really don't do anything else for the week. And then I mean, I don't know how many podcasts I did in that week, Mark, maybe 50. I mean, maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe it was 40. I don't know. But it felt like all I was doing was podcasts and then calling influencers and saying, hey, if I give you a deal, could you have your community buy my book? I really want people to read it. And so, yeah, it was quite the journey. But, the other thing that comes with that, having a Wall Street Journal bestseller, is people want you to speak. Um, and so that's been an interesting journey because I'm a CEO, and that's really where my brain is wired. But so many other companies, they've either read my book or they heard me on a podcast or they experienced one of the Kaiser people in the market helping them and said, wow, you guys really are different. Like, could you talk to our company about what we do from a culture standpoint? So I've been very humbled and blessed to be able to not just I do a lot of talking on commercial real estate, and helping advise tenants and lease negotiation strategies and all those things. But my favorite kind of speaking is talking to leaders and create this culture of selfless service within their organization. And for me, the mission of our company, which is a bizarre mission. I already know you're going to say that it's a bizarre mission for a commercial real estate firm, but our mission is we want to change the business world through selfless service. We want to prove that, hey, if these crazy people in commercial real estate brokerage of all industries could succeed by doing the right thing. Everybody knows you could do the right thing, but most people do the right thing and feel like they'll get trampled. So we're
I
saying,
think it's the exact opposite of batshit crazy. I think it's actually it just makes common sense, and I think when people see that thought process, I think that they'll take it. I don't tell me about this or not. I don't know how you feel about this, but I write a lot. Always try to be a thought leader. Written 3 books, but the process is so consuming that sometimes when you're in constant innovation, creation, fascination, and innovation mode, I find sometimes that by the time the book comes out, that was your thinking 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And sometimes, like people say, "Oh, I thought," and I'm kind of 18 months or 2 years past that thought, and I'm going, "Yeah, that was good, but I've thought so many other better things since then." Does that ever
yeah,
happen to you?
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, all the
you
time,
know,
all the time. I mean, I think what I tried, everybody's there's so much to unpack there, but just to keep it simple, I tried from the beginning to create the book so that it would be evergreen. Yes, some of the things may grow stale, and some of the things that some of the details may change, but the underlying premise, the underlying business model, I wouldn't adjust it in any way, shape, or form. I am thinking about my next book. One, to your point, writing a book is just brutal, and by the time you've edited it yourself 37 times, you don't even like your book anymore, and you can't even edit it anymore because you're so lost in the muck. But if I do another book, so it is an if, but I am kind of thinking about it. I'm going to call it the Kaiser way, which is basically distilling sort of the vision from You Don't Have to Be Ruthless and really laying out. It's been, I don't know, 7 years since I launched the book, something like that. Maybe 6. I've learned a lot since then, right? And there's a lot of practical takeaways that I can offer to people, especially, I mean, we've now all gone through a pandemic, and what I learned through the pandemic was like dog years in business maturity, right? So, yes, I do think that it's constantly evolving, and I see, some authors come out with, version 2 and then version 3. I think for me, if you write a book that has, sustainable truth in it, I think it becomes far more evergreen than other books can. I mean, look at Think and Grow Rich, right? Like,
right.
Think and Grow Rich is ancient, but that book is as relevant today as it was back then.
There's clearly core principles in the Kaiser method. It's clearly a client focused model.
Mhm.
And so I think anybody who's listening that's in business or any entrepreneur is looking for a client focused model or should be looking at it. So why don't you lay out, first of all, I'm going to advise anybody who's watching this to go out and buy the book today. But I would sit down but why don't you give them a little sneak preview of a couple of let's call it your best client focused ideas.
Yeah, you bet. I always like to give that away because you never know if people are going to get to the reading the book and whatnot. It's also available on Audible, and it's actually my voice. The only thing that I would caution the listeners is when I was in the studio, they made me read so damn slow. So I would listen to it at like 200 or maybe even 250% because that's how I normally talk. It'll probably sound a lot more like me if you're listening to this podcast. But yeah, so a couple things. Number one is we have a 15 core operating principles, which most, if you talk to any business coach, will be like, oh my God, that's way too many. That's, I don't know, I don't believe in the sort of like the simple ones that everybody has, like integrity, teamwork, coachability. It's like everybody has all the same shit, and it's dull and it's boring, and nobody even knows what it means half the time. So ours are 3 sentences long each, and they actually describe the behaviors that you can expect from anybody at Kaiser. So we use it internally from a hiring, firing, management standpoint, and we use it externally from a client service standpoint. But the hardest part about doing what I do, Mark, if I'm just going to get to the meat of it all, cut through all the BS, the hardest part about being selfless and being successful, again, I'm going to say that again. I believe that selflessness is actually self interested. Selflessness is selfish, to your point earlier, because I believe that it truly is in your long term best interest to do so. But there's a but. A lot of people, I'll bet you a lot of you listen to this podcast, are listening through your tactical mind. You're thinking, okay, is this the next cool little mousetrap that I can utilize to get more clients? And so the short answer is yes, it is. But here's the catch. The catch is twofold. Number one, you got to be willing to play the long game. This is not an instant gratification play. This is not a I give something to you and you give me something in return. That's an exchange. I'm talking about something very different. This is if you want true, long-term, sustainable success in real estate or in any other business, you have to have a long-term focus. So that's number one. But here's the hard part. The hard part is you actually have to help people. And you have to do it from a place where you actually want to, because there's no way that you talked about decades. I have been loving and serving on people for more than 2 decades now. And if I wasn't wired to do that, which that's a whole different story, and I write about in the book about how I got there, how I went from ruthless to this. But if I wasn't wired, if I didn't really love it, and if I didn't really enjoy it, and if I didn't really want to help other people, one, it wouldn't be sustainable. And two, people have really good BS detectors. So they can tell if you're just trying to manipulate them or if you're truly trying to serve them. So, summary, the hard part is you actually have to become selfless for this to work. And most people, while they nod and smile and go, yeah, that's a great, I love that guy, Jonathan Kaiser. He's got great ideas. That's good stuff. When the rubber meets the road, they think about themselves and they don't pour themselves into the other people. And then it doesn't work. And then they wonder why. So it's that transformation that I talk about in the book. I call it inside out transformation. You got to start with you. Then you got to build a culture in your organization around it. And then you got to be that way in the community. And if you do that inside out sort of revolution, the world is your oyster, as I've experienced for myself.
I mean, I think to me, it's our version of it. I always say it's all BS. Belief systems,
Yeah.
and the fact that one of the things I'm saddest that I feel least proud of in my career is when I first started, I would have people that say were in great debt or financial distress, and I put together a strategy to get them out of debt. I double or triple their business, and I'd come back 6 months or a year or 2 years later, and I didn't double or triple their problems. I 10x their problems because they didn't have good values around money. They internally they weren't there. That they didn't have the belief systems around money or other things. And I think it's the same. What you're really saying is the same thing. It's you can't. It's not. If you say it's a bunch of words and it doesn't come with anything behind it, you're wasting your time and everybody's effort and energy.
Yeah. And I
One
would
of the
out. Yes. 100%
one
agree.
one of the coolest things I've read about you is that you've been really you've created an investment fund for the in the you call it the ecosystem of Arizona. Um, Tell us a little bit about how that plays into who you are and how your company operates.
Sure. No, I'm honored to do so. So I'm a big believer of investing in your own backyard, right? There's sort of this so I'm just talking domestically right now because there's a lot of other thoughts I have internationally, but just domestically, there's sort of this widespread belief that the real money is either in Boston or California or New York. And if you want to have a really successful emerging company, you have to be in one of those markets. And I have a lot of clients in those markets. And I'm not saying that's not true, but one of the things that we've been really focused on is our success has stemmed from being an Arizona company. Sure, we do, work all around the world, but at the end of the day, we're founded and built here in Arizona, and I want to invest back in the community. So, like last night we hosted an event and sponsored an event um, where we're bringing together the um, founders and the funders to try to bring capital to companies that are in Arizona that's not having to come from out of state. And the proliferation, we have some great leaders here in Arizona, from Jack Selby, who has created a fund and is doing amazing things, who'd be another great person for you to have on the podcast. He's Peter Thiel's number two guy. To Andy Lombard, Arizona Venture Corporation, and just the explosion of venture capital investment in Arizona is unbelievable. And then we become the epicenter for semiconductors. So out of we take 25% of our profits at the end of the year as a company, and we invest them in local Arizona enterprises to help grow that ecosystem and help ensure that we're investing back. I think a lot of people think about investment as, giving to the Boys and Girls Club, which we've been members of their board for many years, and those are good, or Goodwill, or go down the list. All of those are good things, but I think investing in the entrepreneurs of the future, to me, is the extraordinary opportunity guys like you and I have in front of them. I met this amazing African American founder woman last night named Melissa, who's innovating in healthcare, and it is so easy for me to help her. I make two or three important connections, and boom, like it was such a simple thing. It took me, I don't know, 5 minutes, maybe 10, to help her listen to what she needs, figure out who I could connect her with, and then let her get it on its way. Imagine if we all did that. That's when people say, "What do you mean by selfless service?" Selfless service to me is I'm leveraging my network, leveraging my connections, I'm leveraging my know-how to help someone else that doesn't have a direct ROI back to me, right? Like if I go help somebody lease office space, I get a commission. So that's not, yes, I may do a good job, and yes, we whatever. But what I'm talking about with selfless service is, what I noticed back in the day, Mark, when I was networking at all these events, is everybody's kind of waiting for the other person to go first. So I started just going first. And I would just say, well, how can I help you? Right. And then they would be stunned when I told them I would do a few things. And then when they got back to their desk, therein lied the service, right? Or they got a book as a follow up from me or whatever. And they're like, wow, you actually helped me. Well, what did that do? One, it created some positive mojo in the universe, right? They have a more positive impression of me than they would have because I did some nice things for them. And they're more likely to want to do something for me in the future, whether I intended that or not. That's just the nature of things. So I truly believe that you can't outgive the universe. And the more that you try to serve and push value across the table and love other people, like you said in the beginning, you get this sort of coalition, right? These advocates for you everywhere. They're like, that dude's a good dude. When I was a shark, I tried to convince everybody I was a good dude, and I was full of shit, and everybody knew it. Now I just try to love and serve people, and studs like you say nice things about me, right? It's like, so it's just flipping the narrative. It's just going from what's in it for me to how can I help you? And
It's funny.
massive.
When I get to speak at various conferences for do various things, probably like you do, and it's amazing to me how so many people's talks are how to get referrals or get introductions or get whatever, and my talk is always about how to give them. Yeah, that's why
Awesome.
when I see the stuff that you're doing, it's so amazing, and it's so thought. There's so much thought leadership there, and so I hate the word out of the box, but I think the idea is it's thinking. You're playing multi-dimensional chess when everybody's playing checkers, and I think the idea is that ultimately that kind of behavior. I'm not afraid to be different. I'm afraid to be the same. And it sounds like to me that let's take it in your vehicle in commercial real estate. There, by definition, half the people in your industry are below average, and there's an awful lot of people that are just doing a solid job and think they're crushing it, but they are not innovating like you're innovating. What's next? Because you've gone more global. I think if I the last time I took a look, you had almost 600 agents.
Yeah, if you look at if you include our international partners, we're up to almost 600. We just had our global conference in Denver last weekend. But yeah, I mean, for me, there's innovation everywhere from AI to different tools. I mean, we are, as a society, property tech is highly interesting. But to me, and I'm not discounting any of that, we're doing some of that. But to me, the real disruption, Mark, is who you're being, right? I'm describing a state of being, not a set of tactics. I'm describing a place that I come from, not a set of things that I'm doing, which some people won't even understand what I'm saying when I say that. But basically, what I'm trying to say is I believe that the most disruptive, most sustainable way that you could be successful in the world, regardless of what is the latest and greatest, and regardless of the innovation, and regardless of the trends, is this mindset of selfless service, this mindset of, how can I help you? People ask me all the time, what's one quick takeaway, JK? Give me what everybody calls me JK. What's one quick takeaway, JK, that we could have that people could put into effect immediately? All right, here it is. Don't change anything else. Whatever your schedule looks like, whatever your meetings look like, whatever. Zoom calls over the next week, every time you have one, in that conversation, instead of thinking, how do I say what I need to say and do what I need to do to get what I want, just for a week. Just trust me for a week. You're not going to go broke, I promise. For 1 week, just try to see how much good you could push across the table and overwhelm everybody you meet with or talk to or interact with pure value from you. Now, that takes listening, that takes probing, that takes caring. But if you do that, you will see a different set of interactions. And then you just imagine that extrapolated across a month, extrapolated across a year, across a decade. The next thing you know, you wake up one morning and you have friends everywhere that are trying to help you. And you don't have to get up every morning and try to go, look out for number one and sell, sell, sell. It becomes, it's like the difference between hunting and farming. Most salespeople are hunters. Most entrepreneurs are hunters. Problem with hunting is, especially if you don't have refrigerators or freezers, that meat goes bad and you got to go out and you got to do it all over again. Sorry to all the non-meat eaters out there. But if you're farming, yeah, I got this citrus tree in my backyard that, man, when it was little, that thing gave me no fruit, and I'd water it and I'd pound those little citrus stakes in the ground, and I had to put a little white fence around it because the dog kept trying to uproot it. It was a pain in my butt, but I just served it and I helped it. And guess what? I can't give away the massive amounts of lemons. I can't squeeze enough, right? So it's this idea of, if you invest in others, if you look at your success as, I'm going to see how much I can help other people versus I'm going to see how much they can help me. If you do that over the long run and you do it from a heart that really cares, you are unstoppable. There is no way that you cannot have extraordinary success.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to ask you another question. I think because some people want to know, commercial real estate is not going to look in 5 years like it looked before the pandemic. There's structural changes in terms of office space, people going to work, different things. How do you see that? How do you see what does your crystal ball tell us how things are going to be different than they were 5 years from now than they were 5 years ago in the commercial space?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously the pandemic affected everything, but I think you know, the short answer is hybrid is here to stay. I mean, I have a full lecture I give on this, right? Hybrid's here to stay. But the crazy part is most employers are realizing how much is lost when they don't have their people together. So that's where hybrid comes in. It's like 2 or 3 days a week is going to become the norm of people being in the office. and then more fluidity around working from home a couple days a week. That's what you're going to see as sort of the established norm. And how it affects, like, just take office space, for example. How it affects office space is you still need the same amount of space. It's empty 40% of the time. But when people are in, they got to have a space to sit, and nobody wants to be right next to each other. Nobody likes to feel the sneeze of somebody right across the desk from them. So people want more space. They want more interaction space, more accidental interaction space, more collaboration space. So you're seeing this, everybody cut, 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 cut. And now you're seeing this race back to the office, but it really is about a power struggle between employer and employee, because employees have gotten very accustomed to working from home and enjoy it. And there's some benefits to them. So it's a balance. And whoever's in a hot employee market, they're in control. In a hot employer market, they're in control. So I think you're going to see fluctuations as time go by, but you would be amazed. I mean, I'm in the forefront of it. You'd be amazed at how many companies are bringing everybody back and leasing big new space.
Yeah, I just think, particularly for young people, I think that so much is lost working out of your bedroom than it
Yeah.
is being able to collaborate and learn from others.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think I've seen that 4 or 5 times where the pendulum swung one way and then it came back hard. And I think
Yeah.
there's and by the way, it also is an individual thing too, because there are actually some people that are incredibly effective from home, and there's other people who don't have the discipline or the focus or other distractions. And I think that, and what I've seen in a lot of other companies is the people that um, most of our clients are telling us, JK, that um, that the people that were fully at home during the pandemic are far behind
They
the
are.
people who were hired before or after them. And the people that were hybrid were ahead of the people that were at home, but they're still behind the people that were in the office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so
And I don't
you
know
know,
if you saw, Mark, there was a study, it came out about a month ago, where it said that we're talking about entrepreneurs, right? It said that venture companies that were in office versus fully remote, there was a 4.5x multiple variance between them. So if that doesn't move the needle, and again, I think it's also, again, we could go down a rabbit hole on this, but there's also the other element, which is segregation of duties. So at one level, it's like there's certain things that I'm really good at doing from home where I have no distractions, but that doesn't mean everything should be at home. And there's certain things that are really good about doing at the office that I should be doing at the office, but that doesn't mean I have to be at the office 8 to 5. I think the whole 8 to 5, Monday to Friday, or else, that thing is that has gone the way of the buffalo and the dinosaur. That is never coming back. But I think hybrid, where organizations are in the office 2, 3 days a week and allowing people the flexibility to work remote for the rest of the time, I think that's what you're going to see as kind of a go forward basis.
well, first of all, I just want to, you know, thank you for taking time out of your day. I'd like everybody to go out again and buy. You don't have to be ruthless to win. And I think that, that all I can tell you is that I don't think anything or any of the principles that you espouse are unique to commercial real estate. They're for anybody. I don't even think you need to have a business to buy this book.
Agreed.
I think you just have to be a human being. And I think everybody will take something amazing out of this. And just thank you for spending some time with us. And as I think it would be apropos for me to say, what can I do to help you? How can I best support you going forward?
That's beautiful, man. Well, just having me on your podcast, which is obviously, a highly rated podcast and something that people find very valuable. I'm grateful for that. I would love to help support you in return and push it out to my community to spread awareness of what you're doing. But, for me, it's always simple. It's like, for me, I represent companies that have space, whether it's office, industrial, healthcare, and retail. We're always willing to do a free assessment for companies and help them figure out, is there ways that they could be saving money, right? If you think about it, commercial real estate is the second or third largest expense for most companies, but it's the least flexible, right? And you can lay off people, but you aren't laying off a lease. And over half of corporate bankruptcies involve breaking a lease. So for me, it's about any CEO or founder that wants to have a true partner to helping them navigate this real estate landscape and not getting stuck in leases that are highly onerous and one-sided. That's where we come in and we'd love to help.
Um, Jonathan Kaiser, managing partner, founder, Kaiser Commercial Real Estate, and an author and an entrepreneur and a thought leader. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Mark.